I'm an ex-MrBeast player, and here's an insider secret. Even the world's biggest YouTubers make stupid mistakes. From boring ideas to annoying product placement and even ugly thumbnails. He's messed up a total of 4 multi-million-dollar videos. Starting with the time he thought exploring an underground city was a good idea. Now this idea sounds good on paper, but you can see a big mistake in the first second.
We are spending the next 7 days in
This shot looks nothing like the thumbnail. Now stretching the truth is fine, but this is just straight up clickbait. Now this would have made a bunch of people click off the video, which is bad for the YouTube algorithm because YouTube tracks how many people click off videos, which results in the video getting less views and less impressions. But if the audience already didn't feel lied to, they will now. Look at this. This looks nothing like a city. There's no houses, there's no civilization, there's just a bunch of random lights. Now this made me lose trust in the quality of the video and sets a negative tone for the rest of it. Also, after doing some digging, I just found this was a random tourist attraction in Romania. Now, it's not really building a content moat if you just randomly record in Romania. Now, content moat is when no one else can redo your video. So think about Beast spending multi-millions of dollars on one video. No one else can do that. Nobody could spend $5 million on a single video or recreate Squid Game set by set, scene by scene. No one can do what he does. But spending a week in just a random cave, it just feels like a glorified filler video. Instead, a cool idea could be, 7 days underwater. There's loads of videos that have done consistently well on this theme. We call this outlier theory, taking ideas that have done well before, repackaging it in a certain way so that it will guarantee to do well again. Now, another reason why 7 days exploring an underground city just falls flat on his face is because there's just not enough meat in the video. It needs some type of other hook point or another reason to watch to make it interesting. They just look around some caves, just get some YouTubers in. It's not very engaging for a viewer. And I'm not really innocent either. Like, I was on the team when Protect $500,000 Keep It was pitched. We put way too much faith in the content. We thought that, just someone protecting a bunch of money would be interesting, but we were wrong. In practice, the content was kind of dry and boring because this person did the bare minimum to protect their money because they are just a random person. And you could see the team trying to make it interesting by having different obstacles to get around, like cannonballs and throwing cars, fire, but it just wasn't enough. What could have been more interesting is doing the video Protect $1 million Keep It. Now, I'm not just saying escalating the money that's protected. Instead, in the middle, he has a total of $1 million. And he has to spend the money to protect it. That means he has to think, oh, how much do I want to spend to protect it? While also considering how to protect it. It would have created another reason to watch the video. How much money would he end up with? How much would he spend? It's just overall way more interesting. Back to the video. At least they have actual food in this video. I thought it was just going to be them eating on lunch days for like 30 minutes. Now that whole lunch day situation is just kind of crazy. Inviting Logan Paul, who's known in the YouTube community as a bit of a scumbag for scamming his audience, there's no way this would have ended up successfully. Which was even weirder because Logan Paul appeared in the video 100 identical twins fight for $250,000. And that video wasn't free from mistakes either. Simply put, this video will put you to sleep. The first challenge was to remember a sequence of colors. Now, when I was watching, it was like, how does this relate with twins? It feels like they weren't taking advantage of the unique concept they came up with. Maybe a challenge that tests how similar they are. So have 3 objects in front of them, both blindfolded, they both pick an object, and if they pick the same one, they go to the next round. That would have been kind of interesting. But no, they wanted to test if the contestants had color blindness. Or they could have tried something completely different. Maybe it could have been interesting to see their twin fight their own twin instead of being on a team. But even a new topic could be interesting. You could have done teachers versus students, or exes, or convicts versus cops. There's so many different contents you could do. That's the problem in the challenges too, because they're just not very innovative. They usually just take a challenge that was previously proven in a different video and slap it in this one, which is just very repetitive and boring. For example, they use the same confusing briefcase idea from 50 YouTubers fight for $500,000. Repetition creates boredom, and boredom makes people click off. And actually being innovative on YouTube is pretty easy. While working at MrBeast's ideation team, we created a formula that lets us innovate while also sticking to concrete data. That meant we could try and create new, innovative formats and pieces of content no one has ever seen before, while not wasting the team's time or Jimmy's millions of dollars.
Now this process is actually based on a book I read called The Medici Effect.
The book talks about finding two different fields that are completely unrelated and finding an intersection in those two. Basically combining several completely different ideas into one innovative new one. For example, if I was on the content writing team, I would take inspiration from Japanese death games, like Alice in Borderland or Squid Games. For example, Alice in Borderland had like a really interesting idea. Every single person was a piece on a chessboard, and the king had to control everyone and sacrifice different pieces to win the game. That would be a really interesting game later in a challenge, when everyone has friends and they vote for someone to become the king, only to be sacrificed as a pawn. That would be really fun content. Now, this isn't to say that MrBeast's team isn't innovative. Even though this video has a lot of constructive criticism, MrBeast's team has a lot of people I actually personally look up to. I even made a 192-page document breaking down their strategies, which you can find in the newsletter below. Now, the document goes with ideation, titles, thumbnails, branding, anything you could want. It's valuable no matter if you're starting out on YouTube or is 10 to 20 million subscribers.
Wait, no, is yelling a strategy?
I don't know what you have to do to stay in, but do not lose to them.
This part of the video really got under my skin. These Karens were so annoying, and I know they try and eliminate them later, but the damage was done. I personally clicked off in this section of the video, and I've seen this pattern a lot. It seems like the only people that leave impression in MrBeast videos are the villains, not the heroes. In ages 1 to 100, it was number 42, manipulating number 43 into eliminating a bunch of kids. In this one, it's the Karen twins. They're annoying, they're loud, and they're just irritating. And even in the Prime video, the person that left the biggest impression on me was the villain. We need heroes to root against the villains, not just villains for the sake of retention. Which Men vs. Women Survived the Wilderness for $500,000 absolutely nailed. Fedra became a fan favorite in this video because she was just a good person. And when she won, it was very, very nice to see that the hero succeeded. But even though they nailed the characters in that video, they also made a massive mistake. And we can kind of see it clearly when we look at other videos about the wilderness on YouTube. These guys built an entire log cabin. This guy built an underground slide, and this guy survived in the wilderness for 2 whole years. Actually, I have a good MrBeast video. Anyway, let's have a look at what the MrBeast contestants did after spending 60 whole days in the wilderness. They built a small stick house and that's it. That's because they're just focusing on surviving. They have no other reason to do something interesting for the camera. This is understandable, but from a content perspective, it means that no progress was made during the entire video, which made me not want to watch any more of the video. And this is a big bottleneck in MrBeast videos. The contestants themselves, because they are real people, why would they do anything interesting? Does that mean we should artificially create challenges or script out the video? Absolutely not. But we do need interesting content in the video. But the actual solution is pretty simple. Creating hidden challenges in the content. Let's say MrBeast does make the idea 365 days stranded in the wilderness, like a 1 to 2 hour long video. That could be quite interesting because of the internal stakes in the video. 365 days, you're going to be missing your family, maybe missing your wife if you're older, missing your kids if you're older. What would you do to entertaining yourself and fill in the time of 365 days stranded in the middle of nowhere? It's interesting as a concept. There are external threats too: starvation, dehydration, survival, shelters, animals. There's loads of interesting things that threaten you from an outside perspective. They're hidden challenges that don't need to be scripted or faked or forced. But it doesn't end there. There's another reason why this video could be really interesting. It's because of the progress in the seasonal weathers in North Carolina. How will they adapt to these changes in weather throughout the video? Additionally, because they're spending so much longer, they're more likely to build a pretty cool base camp, maybe create different things for entertainment. It's still pretty interesting. And this video's mistakes boil down to a simple fact. Just copies what viral videos do, not why they did well. The team tried to combine the Men vs. Women format that did well in the past with wilderness videos that have consistently done well. but they didn't focus on why these wilderness videos did well in the first place. It's being left with nothing in the middle of nowhere, trying to survive like our ancestors did. But in Boys vs. Girls, they just get given pre-prepared food, water, everything they need to survive. This meant that the viral vector of the video was just completely lost. If the team were to do my idea, 365 days surviving in the wilderness, they would give no support to the contestant. They would of course make sure that the contestant could survive themselves, kind of like Bear Grylls Survival Island, and to make sure it's also interesting, they should add another hook. Perhaps it's a young person surviving with a much older person, or it could just be one expert alone but for themselves for 365 days, or maybe a whole family surviving together. Just something that creates another reason to watch the video, which they should have done in 7 days stranded in a cave, because boy, that video was boring. Just the same content repeated again and again and again. Just look at these two scenes back to back. Which one do you think they've made more progress on? These two scenes are 12 minutes apart. Can you guess? Well, trick question. They end up literally where they started. Storytelling 101. Just progress physically, go forward. Now the thumbnail itself, it's okay. Like, very similar to the first frame of the video, which is very good from a retention standpoint. However, it could be greatly improved. My formula for creating a clickable thumbnail is pretty simple. It's only 3 steps. You take an old video that's done well, you create a new composition, and another reason to click. It's OP. My business partner and I have been using this formula for about a year. It's been super successful. We even tested it recently on Nick Giovanni's backlog. So we take the old thumbnails, we update it with a new one. And it's been working extremely well for him. Here's what the thumbnail looked like before. Here's our sketch for it. Here's the first version with the thumbnail designer, and here's the final version. Now, you can see we made him bite it. We made the prime group a lot more drippy to make the click easier for the viewer. So for the 7 days in the cave thumbnail, here's what I would do. Now, I love the opening shot of them climbing down from like hundreds of feet of a butt. That's a really opening strong hook. So for the thumbnail, let's kind of show it in a more dramatic way. Let's have Jimmy climbing down in a similar gear from the start of the video. Now let's make this cave seem massive. This will connect the opening shot with the thumbnail. For the composition, a top-down shot does really well for them in the 7 days format, so let's take that. Now we need some type of contrast, so I'll have Jimmy wearing some orange gear. Orange is also the color of danger, so it's kind of a double win here. Let's add some greenery around him so it will nicely contrast with that orange. And satisfying shapes do well in the thumbnail, so let's have the cave be a perfect circle. Now I saw a lot in cave thumbnails and other climbing videos that leading lines do well. These are lines that help you lead to a certain part of the thumbnail. So let's have a steep drop connecting that circle. This looks visually interesting. Now let's add another reason to click. Danger would work really well in this thumbnail. Let's have the cave crumble down slightly, add falling rocks around him to add some depth, and also let's make his gear more worn out to emphasize the danger. Boom, simple process, and it kind of turned out great. And it is pretty easy for me to sit here, give criticism to the Beast team, because I know the Beast team does work very, very hard. And finding these mistakes were hard for me. And I know the Beast team were under a lot of stress with Beast games, which was probably why these mistakes slipped through the cracks. And remember, if you want the free 192 page document, just click the link in the description.